The lawyer's voice was a quiet, steady drone, but each word felt like a sharp pin pricking my skin. I sat stiffly in the deep leather chair, my hands clenched together so tightly my knuckles turned white. My older brother, Michael, sat beside me, his face a perfect mask of somber respect. We were in the formal office, listening to our parents' last will and testament. The family business, the house, the entire investment portfolio, it all flowed directly to Michael. The air in the room grew heavy, each new item listed another weight on my chest. When the lawyer finally finished reading, a profound silence descended. I found my voice, a shaky, hesitant whisper. Is there anything for me? The lawyer adjusted his glasses, deliberately avoiding my gaze. Your parents felt Michael, as the eldest son, was naturally best suited for the responsibility of the estate. Michael placed a heavy, patronizing hand on my shoulder. I'll always take care of you, Lily. You don't need to worry. I pulled away from his touch, the gesture feeling hollow and insincere. In that crystal-clear moment, I understood my place. I was not an heir, I was an afterthought. The room, with its expensive wood and legal books, felt like a tomb for my parents' belief in me. That night, the silence in my small, rented apartment was deafening. It echoed with the ghosts of a lifetime of memories. I thought about my childhood, how Michael's achievements were always met with booming praise and celebratory dinners. My own accomplishments, my good grades, my school awards, were met with a brief, distracted, "That's nice, dear." I had dedicated every summer and school break to working in the family hardware stores, learning the business from the stockroom to the sales floor. Michael only appeared for his paycheck, always finding an excuse to leave early. A cold, hard resolve began to solidify, replacing the initial wave of grief. They had left me nothing because they genuinely believed I was nothing, incapable of handling it. A fierce, burning fire I never knew I possessed ignited deep within my chest. The realization was terrifying, yet liberating. If I had no safety net, then I had absolutely nothing left to lose. I was completely free, in the most frightening way imaginable. This freedom was my only inheritance, and I vowed not to waste it. Exactly 1 week later, I forced myself to visit the main store, my stomach a tight knot of dread and curiosity. The familiar brass bell above the door chimed its same, cheerful note, a sound that once felt like home. Michael was already there, standing where my father used to, already embodying the role of the boss with an unnatural stiffness. He was talking to Mr. Henderson, our most loyal and knowledgeable employee who had been there for decades. We need to modernize, streamline, cut out all this old-fashioned clutter, Michael declared, waving a dismissive hand at the well-organized shelves of specialty tools. When his eyes landed on me, his smile was thin and unwelcoming. Lily, you really don't need to trouble yourself by coming here anymore. I have everything under control. I simply nodded, saying nothing, but my eyes were busy, carefully scanning the store, taking in every detail. I saw the worried, anxious looks exchanged between the longtime staff. They knew the truth. Michael didn't understand the soul of the business, the delicate ecosystem of trust and quality. He was going to run it straight into the ground through sheer, arrogant ignorance, and the staff could already see the cliff's edge approaching. My financial situation was precarious, but I had one secret weapon. A modest sum of money my grandmother had left specifically for me in a separate, private account. It wasn't a fortune, but it was entirely mine, free from any family strings or expectations. I spent long, intense days at the public library, surrounded by towering stacks of books, studying complex business plans, marketing strategies, and intimidating financial projections. I knew hardware inside and out, the feel of a good hammer, the sound of a quality saw, but I needed to become an expert on everything else, the dry language of commerce that made the world turn. One rainy afternoon, I saw Mr. Henderson sitting alone at a corner table in the local coffee shop, staring into his mug. He gestured for me to join him, his expression weary. He's ordering cheap, imported products that break within a week, he confessed in a low, frustrated voice. All our regular, loyal customers are complaining. It's a disgrace. A wild, audacious, and utterly terrifying idea began to form in my mind, pushing past the fear. What if I built my own store? A place that truly valued quality, honesty, and genuine customer service, a return to the principles my parents had forgotten. The risk was enormous, felt like standing on a cliff's edge, but the memory of Michael's smug, dismissive face pushed me forward over the edge into the unknown. After a relentless, discouraging search, I finally found a small, dilapidated warehouse on the forgotten industrial outskirts of town. It was dusty, dark, and desperately needed repair, the windows grimy and the floor concrete and stained, but the monthly rent was something I could actually afford. This neglected, forlorn space would be the birthplace of my dream, a blank canvas for my ambition. I decided to name it The Foundation, a testament to what I intended to build, something that would last. I proceeded to work day and night, my life consumed by the sense of fresh paint, sawdust, and cleaning supplies. I scrubbed floors on my hands and knees, patched walls with drywall compound, and built sturdy, reliable shelves with my own 2 blistered hands. My muscles ached and my body protested, but for the very first time since my parents' passing, my spirit felt truly, vibrantly alive, powered by a purpose that was entirely my own. I wasn't inheriting a legacy. I was painstakingly creating my own from scratch, from the ground up. I reached out to the specialized, smaller-scale suppliers Michael had alienated with his demands for cheaper goods. They were hesitant at first, but they remembered my dedication and passion for quality. Slowly, cautiously, they agreed to give me a chance, starting with small, manageable orders that I paid for in advance, building trust one transaction at a time. The grand opening of the foundation was a deliberately quiet, almost humble affair. There was no loud band, no giant sale banners screaming for attention, just a simple, hand-painted open sign swinging in the window. A handful of curious people wandered in throughout the day, their footsteps echoing in the spaciousness. From the very first moment, I focused relentlessly on what I knew truly mattered, giving expert, patient advice, stocking only high-quality, reliable tools that felt right in your hand, and treating every single person who walked through the door with respect and genuine attention. Later that evening, as the sun was setting, Mr. Henderson visited after his shift at my brother's store, still wearing his work apron. He walked slowly through the aisles, running a careful hand over the solid wood shelves, inspecting the neat rows of tools, a genuine, approving smile finally spreading across his tired face. "This is it, Lily. This is what a real hardware store is supposed to feel like. It has heart." His quiet, heartfelt approval meant more to me than any grand opening crowd or ribbon-cutting ceremony ever could. Slowly but surely, person by person, word of mouth began to spread through the neighborhood like a pleasant rumor. People loved the personal touch, the lack of pressure. They appreciated that the owner was the one personally helping them find the perfect solution, not just a quick sale. Meanwhile, just across town, Michael's stores were visibly struggling, a decline that was becoming the talk of the local business community. He had impulsively raised prices while simultaneously cutting staff hours, a disastrous combination that alienated both employees and customers. The quality of his products had become notoriously unreliable, a fact echoed in the growing pile of returned, broken items. Unhappy customers started posting furious, one-star reviews online, detailing their frustrations with poor service and shoddy merchandise. I heard from a mutual friend that Michael was absolutely furious, his ego badly bruised, pacing his office and blaming everyone but himself. He simply could not comprehend why people were deliberately choosing my small, unassuming shop over his established, well-located stores. His response was predictable and aggressive, a classic bully's move. He started a brutal price war, slashing his prices on key items to unsustainable, below-cost levels in a transparent, desperate attempt to drive me out of business before I could gain a real foothold. While it certainly hurt my thin profit margins and caused many sleepless nights staring at budget sheets, my growing base of loyal, discerning customers stood firmly by me. They understood, from hard-won experience, that true value wasn't just about the lowest price tag on the shelf, but about the reliability and service that came with it. The relentless price war was systematically draining my limited, carefully guarded savings, the numbers in my bank account dwindling at an alarming rate. I knew, with a sinking feeling in my gut, that I could not compete on price alone forever. It was a battle of attrition I was destined to lose. I had to be smarter, to outmaneuver him with strategy, creativity, and community connection, not brute financial force. I decided to launch a series of free, weekend DIY workshops, designing simple flyers to post around town. Basic home plumbing, how to tile a backsplash, introduction to woodworking. The community response was incredible and immediate. The classes were an instant hit, with waiting lists forming each week and the store packed with eager learners. They successfully brought a constant stream of new, friendly faces into the store and, more importantly, built a wonderful, supportive sense of community, a feeling that this was their store too. My store transformed from a simple retail space into a lively, bustling, social hub, filled with the sounds of conversation and learning. In stark contrast, Michael's stores felt cold, impersonal, and empty, places of transaction, not interaction. He was losing the war he himself had started, and his simmering frustration was becoming obvious to everyone, including his own demoralized staff, who were now actively looking for other work. One Tuesday evening, just as I was about to pull down the shutters, a stern-faced city inspector in an official uniform arrived at my door, holding a clipboard. He stated he had received an anonymous, detailed complaint about my building's outdated electrical wiring, claiming it was a serious fire hazard and a danger to the public. I knew with absolute, cold certainty it was Michael's doing, a cowardly, underhanded move designed to burden me with bureaucracy and fear. I was forced to spend a large, painful chunk of my emergency fund, money I had earmarked for new inventory, to hire a certified, independent electrician to fully inspect and certify the entire system, which was, of course, found to be perfectly safe and up to code. It was a dirty, costly tactic designed to slow me down and drain my resources. While the financial setback was real and stressful, the sheer injustice of it also made me angrier and more fiercely determined than ever to succeed, to prove that his tactics would not work. I started meticulously keeping a detailed, dated journal of every business interaction, every order, every incident, creating a paper trail. A deep, gut feeling told me this was only his opening gambit, his first real attempt to break my spirit and my business, and I needed to be prepared for the next one. I decided it was time to fight back, but I would do it my way, with light, not his way, with shadows. I conceived and launched a Community Builders Grant program, spending an evening designing the simple rules. The concept was beautifully straightforward. For every $10 a customer spent, they earned one vote to direct a portion of our quarterly profits toward a local charity, school, or community project of their choice. The program was a resounding, unexpected success, giving our customers a real sense of ownership and pride in where they shopped. They would come in and ask how the grant fund was growing, suggesting new causes to support. The local newspaper caught wind of it and ran a front-page story in the lifestyle section titled, "The Little Store with a Big Heart." The resulting wave of positive, free publicity was priceless, a marketing campaign I could never have afforded. People now consciously chose to shop with me, not just for the quality and service, but to actively, directly support their own community. My business saw a significant, welcome surge in new, deeply loyal customers who believed in the mission. Michael's attempt to sabotage me had, in a beautiful twist of fate, completely and utterly backfired, shining a brilliant, positive spotlight on my store instead of his, and he had no one to blame but himself. The positive press clearly stung Michael's pride, a public relations victory he could not ignore. He came to the foundation in person a few days later, marching into the store like a man on a mission, his expensive shoes clicking loudly on the polished concrete floor. He stood rigidly in the middle of the main aisle, his face a tight, angry mask, his presence causing the cheerful chatter to die down instantly. "You think you're so clever with your little charity stunts," he spat, his voice loud and cutting enough for everyone in the store to hear. "This is still just a hobby, a pathetic little side project. I will bury you, Lily. Just you watch." Every customer and employee in the store froze, watching the scene unfold with wide, uncomfortable eyes. I felt my heart hammering against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat of anxiety, but I did not raise my voice. I walked calmly toward him, stopping a few feet away, my posture straight and confident, my hands steady at my sides. You were given everything, Michael, on a silver platter. I built this from nothing, with my own hands and my own sweat. That is the fundamental, unchangeable difference between us. You can't possibly destroy what you don't even begin to understand. He was left completely speechless, his mouth opening and closing without a sound, his face flushing a dark, blotchy red. He simply turned on his heel and stormed out, the glass door rattling violently in its frame as he slammed it shut with all his might, leaving a stunned silence in his wake. The ugly public confrontation, rather than shaking my confidence, only poured gasoline on the fire of my resolve. It was the final, undeniable sign I needed. It was time to grow, to expand my territory and secure my future. I strategically used the healthy profits from the recent surge in business to secure a lease and open a second, larger, more modern location in a thriving neighboring town, a place Michael had never bothered to penetrate. I needed good, experienced people, so I began hiring, and was fortunate and grateful to bring on 2 of Michael's former department managers, who had left, disillusioned by his poor leadership, toxic attitude, and the sinking ship they saw his business becoming. My small empire was now officially expanding, being built one solid, trustworthy brick at a time, on a foundation of respect and shared vision. I was no longer the overlooked, forgotten daughter. I was Lily, a legitimate, respected business owner. A leader in my community. The feeling of pride that washed over me was immense, powerful, and completely, 100% my own creation, a feeling no inheritance could ever provide. Nearly a year to the day after I first opened my doors, I received a formal, unexpected call from our family's lawyer, his tone as neutral and unreadable as ever. He informed me that Michael had requested a meeting, a message that sent a jolt of mixed emotions through me. We agreed to meet at a neutral, quiet cafe downtown, a place with soft lighting and the gentle clatter of cups. He arrived looking tired, defeated, the usual arrogance finally drained from his face, leaving behind a hollowed-out version of my brother. His business, he confessed after a long pause, was drowning in debt, its reputation in tatters, its customer base evaporated. He leaned across the small table, his voice low and pleading, almost a whisper. Lily, we're family. You have to help me. You need to give me a loan to save Mom and Dad's business. It's their legacy, their life's work. I looked steadily at my brother, the one who had been handed a thriving, profitable empire and had managed to run it into the ground through sheer negligence and arrogance. I felt a distant, faint pang of sadness for the man he had become, but I felt no sympathy whatsoever for the dire, self-inflicted situation he had created for himself through his own awful, prideful choices. I deliberately took a slow, deliberate sip of my tea, the warm liquid grounding me, using the moment to gather my scattered thoughts and steady my nerves. I knew this was a pivotal, defining moment in our relationship and in my career, a crossroads. Giving him a loan would be like pouring my hard-earned money into a bucket with a giant hole in the bottom. It would solve nothing, only delay the inevitable collapse and drain my own resources. His entire business model was fundamentally broken, his reputation with suppliers and customers irreparably damaged. But a flat, emotional refusal would likely be twisted and used against me, to make me look like the heartless, greedy villain in the family story. I needed a smart, strategic, business-like solution that protected my own interests while exposing the true, full depth of his failure for the record. I'm not going to give you a loan, Michael, I said, my voice firm and clear, leaving no room for negotiation. His face immediately fell, his shoulders slumping in a visible wave of despair. But, I continued, leaning forward slightly to emphasize my point, I will make you a formal, legitimate, written offer to buy the entire business from you, assets and name included. The shock that registered on his face was absolute, priceless, a mixture of disbelief and pure outrage. The little sister, the one deemed unworthy and incapable, was now proposing to become his boss, to buy him out and take what he saw as his birthright. His refusal was immediate, explosive, and exactly as I had anticipated. He called me arrogant, power-hungry, and delusional, his voice rising enough that other cafe patrons glanced over. He accused me of trying to steal what was rightfully his, of capitalizing on his misfortune. He shoved his chair back, the legs screeching harshly against the tiled floor, and stormed out of the cafe, leaving his half-finished coffee behind and the door swinging wildly. I had fully expected that visceral reaction. The offer, I admitted to myself, wasn't really for him. It was a strategic move for me, a line in the sand. It solidified my new position of power in our dynamic, transforming me from a supplicant into a potential savior, an option he was too proud to take. I had successfully transitioned from the victim, to the competitor, and now, to the potential acquirer. I held all the leverage, and he knew it. I returned to my office and, with a sense of grim satisfaction, drafted a formal, detailed written offer letter, citing a fair market value. I sent it to his home address and officially copied the family lawyer, making the serious, businesslike proposal a matter of legal record. The game had changed entirely, and I was now writing the rules. Weeks turned into months, and the whispers from the local business community grew louder, a constant, background hum of gossip and speculation. I heard through the tangled grapevine that Michael was growing increasingly desperate, his options vanishing one by one as creditors circled. He had apparently found a potential outside investor, a venture capitalist from out of town, but the terms of the deal were reportedly brutal, predatory, designed to leave him with virtually nothing in the end, a mere figurehead with no real authority. I consciously chose to ignore the noise, the schadenfreude, and focused all my energy and attention on my own stores, which were continuing to thrive and grow steadily, their reputation solidifying. My second location was proving to be even more successful than the first, quickly becoming a beloved community fixture and a reliable source of good jobs. I had proven my concept beyond a shadow of a doubt, to myself and to everyone who had doubted me. My empire was still small in the grand scheme of global business, but it was robust, profitable, and built on an unshakable foundation of integrity, quality, and relentless hard work. Precisely the qualities my parents had never seen or valued in me, the quiet daughter. The inevitable, long-predicted finally happened. Michael's business collapsed under the crushing, cumulative weight of its own debt, mismanagement, and terrible reputation. He was forced to file for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, a public admission of failure. The stores were unceremoniously shuttered, the lights turned off for good, the windows soon covered in dusty grime, and all the remaining assets. Shelving, old inventory, even the desks, were sold off at a bleak, sparsely attended auction to pay his numerous, angry creditors. The family business our parents had spent their entire lives lovingly building, the stores that bore our name, was gone, erased from the town's commercial landscape. One evening, driven by a morbid curiosity, I found myself driving slowly past the original store location, the one I had loved so dearly as a child, where I had stocked my first shelf and rung up my first sale. The familiar, hand-painted sign was gone, the windows were dark and dusty, and a lonely, faded, "For lease" sign was taped crookedly to the inside of the glass door. I felt a profound, aching sadness for the loss of what could have been, for the shared legacy that was so carelessly squandered, for the memories that now had no physical home. But I felt not a single ounce of personal guilt. I had tried to save it, to offer a sensible, dignified way out. He had been too proud, too arrogant, too blinded by his own sense of entitlement to accept my help, and so he lost everything. In the quiet aftermath of the collapse, I saw a unique and powerfully symbolic opportunity. I attended the court-mandated bankruptcy auction, my heart pounding with a mix of nerves and firm resolve, surrounded by bargain hunters and scrap dealers. When the lot for the business's intellectual property, the trade name, Harding Hardware, came up, I took a deep breath and placed a clean, clear bid. There was a moment of silence, then the auctioneer's gavel fell. I had won. The Harding Hardware name, with all its history, memories, and the ghost of my parents' dreams, now legally, officially belonged to me. It was a deeply symbolic, personal victory, a reclamation. I wasn't just building my own separate thing anymore, I was actively reclaiming my family's legacy, intending to restore its tarnished honor and give it new meaning. I decided to merge it thoughtfully under the Foundation brand, creating a new, hybrid identity, the Foundation by Harding. It was a name that honored the past, acknowledged the journey, while looking firmly toward a better, stronger, more ethical future, a future I would control and shape with the values they had forgotten. One quiet, sunny afternoon, my Uncle Frank, my father's quieter, kinder brother, paid me a surprise visit at my office, settling into the chair across from my desk with a gentle sigh. He sat down, his manner gentle and unassuming, and told me something that fundamentally shifted my entire understanding of the past, reframing the narrative I had carried for years. Your father, he said softly, choosing his words with care, was secretly intimidated by Michael. He was a weak man in some ways, conflict-averse, and Michael was loud, demanding, and bullish from a young age. The will. The will was your father's cowardly way of buying peace, of appeasing the loudest, most difficult voice in the room, of taking the path of least resistance. It was never a true reflection of your worth, your capabilities, or your intelligence. He explained that my father had genuinely, naively believed, in his heart, that Michael would ultimately do the right thing and care for me, that family would prevail. It was a tragic, catastrophic error in judgment, a failure of perception that cost us all dearly. The deep, lingering hurt of the betrayal remained, a permanent scar on my heart, but finally understanding my father's profound weakness, his very human flaw, helped to finally, after all this time, begin to heal the raw, angry wound. Inspired and motivated by this new, complex understanding, I decided to use the reclaimed Harding name not for profit, but for a purpose that would bring genuine, lasting good to the community that had supported me. I invested a significant portion of my profits into opening a non-profit, state-accredited training center in the old, vacant flagship store, teaching valuable, marketable skilled trades to young adults, career changers, and people looking for a second chance at a stable, dignified career. It quickly became the proudest, most meaningful part of my entire business empire, the project that made me feel most connected to my roots. The community response was overwhelmingly positive and supportive, with local contractors partnering to hire graduates. My parents' legacy was no longer a story of failure and bankruptcy, it was now a vibrant, hopeful, bustling place of learning, growth, and tangible opportunity, filled with the sounds of saws and the smell of sawdust, a sound I loved. I had single-handedly rewritten the family narrative, transforming a story of loss into one of redemption. Michael had carelessly destroyed what he was given. I had courageously, painstakingly built something new, meaningful, and enduring from the ashes he left behind. In the months that followed the bankruptcy, Michael simply disappeared from town, vanishing like a ghost, cutting all ties and leaving no forwarding address. He moved to another state, hundreds of miles away, severing connections with everyone from his old life. I heard through distant, shocked relatives that he was working a mundane, regular, 9-to-5 job in a completely different industry, a stark and humbling contrast to his former role as the heir and president of a business empire. We have not spoken a single word to each other since that day in the cafe, the chasm between us now permanent and unbridgeable. I realized, to my own surprise, that I didn't hate him anymore. The emotion had burned out, leaving only emptiness. In a strange, detached way, I only felt pity for him, for the prison he had built for himself. He had been a prisoner of my parents' gifts, never forced to develop his own strength, character, or resilience, never tested in the fire of adversity. I, on the other hand, who had been left with nothing but doubt and a pittance, had been forced by circumstance to discover a bottomless well of strength, courage, and resilience within myself, a strength he would never, ever know or understand. 5 full years after the fateful reading of the will, I stood in the middle of my bustling, successful flagship store, the original foundation location, now expanded into the unit next door. The air was filled with the productive, satisfying sounds of conversation, the ping of ringing cash registers, and the steady hum of activity and commerce. I now had 5 locations across the region, each one profitable and beloved in its community, and my nonprofit training center was proudly graduating its 5th class of students, all of whom had multiple job offers waiting from local contractors who trusted our training. A journalist from a prestigious national business magazine was there, a sharp, intelligent woman with a kind smile, interviewing me for a major feature on successful, purpose-driven entrepreneurial women. As I looked around at what I had built, the shelves stocked, the staff smiling, the customers browsing, I was filled with a deep, quiet, and profound satisfaction that settled in my bones. Every single shelf, every quality tool, every dedicated, smiling employee was a living, breathing testament to my own vision, my own work, and my own unyielding will, a monument not to an inheritance, but to effort. The reporter, after a long and wide-ranging conversation, eventually asked the question I had known was coming from the very beginning, the central theme of my story. The catalyst for all this, the spark, was your family leaving the original business entirely to your brother. Would you say that the anger and betrayal from that moment was the primary fuel, the driving force, for your incredible success? I smiled, a genuine, peaceful smile that reached my eyes and felt light on my face, no longer a heavy mask. No, I answered honestly, without a trace of bitterness. It didn't fuel me. It freed me. It forced me to stop looking for their approval, their validation, and to start trusting myself, my own instincts, completely and unconditionally. I realize now, with perfect clarity, that the greatest, most valuable gift they ever gave me was nothing. The answer was my truth, hard-won and deeply felt. The simmering anger was long gone, evaporated over time like a morning mist, replaced now by a profound, quiet gratitude for that difficult, painful, but necessary path. That very path, as hard and lonely as it was, had forged me, tempered me, into the resilient, capable person I was always meant to be. Later that same week, I received a small, plain cardboard package in the mail, the kind you can buy at any post office. There was no return address, only a postmark from a nearby city where my Uncle Frank lived. Inside, nestled in soft, white tissue paper, was my mother's favorite necklace, a simple, elegant silver locket on a delicate chain, the one I remembered her wearing every single day, its surface worn smooth by time. Tucked neatly beside it was a short, handwritten note from my Uncle Frank, his penmanship shaky but clear. Found this going through some old boxes in the attic. She would have wanted you to have this, I'm sure of it. For what it's worth, and I know it's late, I believe she was always proud of the person you were becoming, Lily. She just never, ever knew how to say it, how to break the pattern. I held the cool, familiar metal locket in my palm, feeling its familiar weight, an anchor to a complicated past. It didn't magically erase the past or the years of feeling unseen and unheard, but it did offer a small, unexpected, and precious piece of peace, a gentle, belated closing of a loop I thought would remain open forever. I put it away carefully in a drawer with my other keepsakes, a tender, bittersweet relic from a chapter of my life that was now firmly, finally, and peacefully closed. That evening, as the sun began to set, casting long, golden shadows across the polished concrete floor, I was the last one left, carefully locking up the store, checking each door twice. I stood for a long, quiet moment on the sidewalk outside, the evening air cool on my skin, looking up at the clean, modern, backlit sign that bore the name I had built through blood, sweat, and tears, through doubt and determination. My empire. I realized with a start that it wasn't about revenge anymore, or even about proving a point to anyone but myself. It was purely, simply about fulfillment, about the deep, abiding joy of creating something that mattered, that provided, that built up the people around me. My parents had left everything to my brother because they were convinced he was the strong one, the capable one, the one who mirrored their own ambitions. They were so terribly, tragically wrong, their judgment clouded by noise over substance. True strength isn't what you're given by others, the weight of their expectations. It's what you dig deep and build for yourself, with your own two hands, your own curious mind, and your own unwavering, resilient heart. And I, Lily, had built something truly unshakable, something that could never, ever be taken away, because it was woven into the very fabric of my being. I got into my car, took one last, long look at my creation glowing in the twilight, and drove home through the quiet streets, my heart completely, utterly, and perfectly at peace, finally home.